Jaylen Brown, Karl-Anthony Towns, Bradley Beal. Put away the trade machine because there are 3 reasons why the Pelicans likely aren't trading away the 14th pick in the NBA draft. It's today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Thursday, we are going to look at the Pelicans with the 14th overall pick and why they're probably not going to trade it away. It's fun to break into the NBA trade machine, but is it very realistic? And I'll give you 3 reasons why not. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday. No one else comes to you like this, breaking down every single thing you want to know about this Pelicans team, completely free. The insight you want to hear, no hot takes or things just designed for clicks, just giving you the Pelicans talk that you want. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday because we got great insight. A couple days ago, gave you some stuff on jerseys that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So let's get into it. With the 14th overall pick, seems like the Pelicans would like to trade this. You know, they want to get back into the playoffs after a disappointing last season. Maybe you need a little bit more cover redundancy in case of a Zion Williamson or Brandon Ingram injury. Maybe you want to upgrade at the center position instead of Jonas Valanciunas, go in a different direction. So they're going to trade the pick away, right? Well, I don't think there's a great trade market for the Pelicans with this 14th pick. And I think there's 2 other reasons also, in addition to that, why they're not going to do it. But I want to look at the trade market to start. When you look at this draft in the draft order, let me pull it up here. There's some teams that want to trade their picks away too. San Antonio is going to take somebody. I think Charlotte will draft someone too. But at 3rd, Portland, they want to trade that pick. Damian Lillard has said, I want to win next year. And whoever you're taking at 3, whether it's Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, that guy's not going to help you win immediately next year. Rookies don't really contribute to winning till they're like late in their 2nd year, maybe 3rd year in the league for the most part. It takes a little bit. So Portland's likely going to trade that 3rd pick away to go after a big name, do some big name shopping to put alongside Damian Lillard and stay in the Damian Lillard business so that they don't have to trade him away. And Mike Richmond, host of Locked On Blazers, awesome show here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, said that if they end up drafting someone there, that probably means they're trading Damian Lillard. And they don't want to do that yet. And I get it. So they're looking to trade the pick, which sounds more appealing if you're Minnesota and you're looking to deal Karl-Anthony Towns. And I don't know that they are. The 3rd pick or the 14th pick? That's a problem. That's a big problem because conceivably, the Blazers and the Pelicans are going to be going after similar targets. You know, there's not a ton out there right now that you could necessarily pry away, even for the 3rd pick in the draft. Well, Portland, if there's very few guys that are kind of potentially going to be on the move in difference makers, and Jaylen Brown isn't one of them either, then the 3rd pick's going to trump the 14th pick unless you're including someone like Trey Murphy III in that deal. Don't want to do that just yet. You can go down further in the draft and go, yeah, that's probably going to complicate things even more for the Pelicans as well, and that would be Dallas at 10. They are absolutely trading that pick away to do something around Luka Doncic because last year was a disappointment. They tanked to get that spot to keep that pick, got a $750,000 fine, and they're not doing that to draft someone at 10, even though this draft is not bad. They're looking to move that someone in to help, and it's kind of as simple as that. They, in Locked On, I can't even think. Locked On Mavs did a show on this where they talked about guys drafted 10 or later who played 20 plus minutes on a playoff team. Pels actually have a couple of those guys, but it's not as big of a list as you would think. So them likely trading for or drafting someone there isn't going to move the needle like trading it for a vet would. So they're going to trade that pick. I think that. And guess what? The 10th pick looks better than the 14th pick. So when these deals are out there, unless the Pelicans are including some of their better players in there, maybe that's Jonas Valanciunas, maybe not. I think they're going to have a tough time beating some of the other offers unless they're including additional first-round picks. But then are you overpaying? And if you're in a small market, you've got to be careful with your asset management. So all of this is to say, I don't think this is a great spot for the Pelicans to be in to trade away this pick, because I think you're going to have to overpay because that pick just isn't as appealing as other deals that are going to be out there. And that means for the Pelicans, it's going to drive the price up. So you need to maybe include a future pick. And I'm actually going to get into that in the third segment of today's show. I want to talk about next year's draft a little bit too in all of that. So you're likely not going to trade away the pick if Portland can beat you, if Dallas can beat you, and if you're going to overpay, because that's not something that the Pelicans want to do. So it creates a market for New Orleans, at least, that isn't ideal. And it's not like there's really a ton of stuff you could go out and get really for the 14th overall pick too. And you're not going to include Trey Murphy III in a deal. You'd include Najee Marshall in a deal, but let's be realistic. Najee Marshall isn't the equivalent of a first-round pick here. You could include Herb Jones. I wouldn't do that for a young wing defender that does what he does. You know, Jonas Valanciunas probably doesn't have that much value around the league. You're not going to trade CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, or Brandon Ingram. So, and Kyra Lewis Jr. doesn't have much value. When you look at it, there's just not much of a market there. So, unfortunately, you might need to put away the NBA trade machine right now, because I don't think you're going to find a deal that makes a ton of sense with the 14th overall pick. But prove me wrong. Put your deals, put your trades in the comments down below on YouTube. I'll take a look. Maybe we'll react to some of your trades on the show, and we can have a little bit of fun with all of that. Maybe I'll put up a form where you can submit your trades, your screenshots of all that, and we'll see if we can break them down, see if any makes sense for either team here in an episode of Locked On Pelicans. So coming up next, that's one of the reasons why I don't think they're trading the pick. Salary cap, luxury tax, that's a problem. I've been warning you about this. Let's take a look at it again coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we do that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by eBay Motors. You're working on your car. You want the parts to fit. You want them to be correct, because if they don't fit, all of a sudden what should have been a 30-minute thing has turned into a half-day long, maybe a whole weekend-long project. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. You just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. I work on all my cars. I order my parts from eBay Motors because it's so easy. I know they're all going to fit. 50-year-old car, no problem. Threw on a bunch of all 4 new brake calipers the other day, and it was a breeze because they all just went right on. Like 15 minutes on each one. I was done within an hour because of that guaranteed fit. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be right back out there driving in no time. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday. No one else comes to you like this, completely free. There's no hot takes. We're just giving you the facts and the inside info, too, that you want about this Pelican squad. The jersey stuff was there on Tuesday's episode, Monday's episode, one of those. If you're an everydayer, you know which. You can say which down in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, become an everydayer and comment down below on YouTube, the 2 best things that you can do. So let's continue to talk about why I don't think the Pelicans are going to end up trading away the 14th pick for a player. There is a scenario, and I'll get into that in the next segment, where I do see the pick getting traded, but this is like a technicality. I'll let you know. Well, I'll explain it in this segment too. So first and foremost, another reason why they're probably not going to make a move is luxury tax concerns for the future. This team got expensive. When you're paying Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and CJ McCollum over $30 million each, it kind of really saps up any financial flexibility that you had. And that's okay. You've got to pay your best players. That's what you do. but they're right pushing up against the border of the luxury tax. And if you trade away this pick, it sheds, in theory, some money, what you would be paying the rookie, but you're also going to be bringing back money. And that could be, not always, could be a problem because you need to send out kind of equal money. And depending on how a deal could work, maybe you're bringing back more money. And if that's the case, well, now you're really pushing the luxury tax and you still have holes to plug on this roster. There needs to be a replacement, if it's not just him, for Josh Richardson and some of the other guys that are free agents on this team. Billy Hernangomez, I expect, will be a free agent too, potentially. So you need to fill that roster out without going into the luxury tax. And if you're bringing in another big money player, you're basically committing the entirety of the salary cap to 4 guys at that point. Zion, BI, CJ, and whatever you trade the 14th pick for, along with that other salary that you sent out. It's a real top-heavy roster. And as we're seeing here in the postseason with the Miami Heat just beating the Boston Celtics, depth can be a good thing. Having those other guys that can step up can be a really important thing. Same for the Denver Nuggets, a team that is kind of showing that off. So with the luxury tax concerns there, I don't think they want to add too much more long-term salary to the books. Go beyond this season, but 2 seasons from now. Then what? Then you're in it, and maybe you can't duck the luxury tax, and now you're forced to pay it. And what does that mean? If this team won't pay it, and it's an open question if they will or not, they're one of 2 NBA franchises that has never paid the luxury tax, then do you have to start trading guys away? Do you have to trade a Brandon Ingram away? A CJ McCollum away? And I know some of y'all want CJ McCollum traded, but you don't want to be forced into that decision because of the salary cap, because you just don't want to pay the luxury tax. You do that because, well, he's not a good player and you can upgrade. And we're not there yet with CJ. So I think that prevents them from making a move. A cheap, cost-controlled rookie on a rookie-scale deal, their salary's basically set for the next 4 years, and it's just going to be that more or less, 20%. And you know that guy's going to be cheap. And when you have a guy like Trey Murphy making what he's making and giving you the kind of production that he gives you, and I'll pull up his cap hit here, you feel really good about that. Trey Murphy, who averaged 14.5 points per game this past season, shooting 40% from 3, made $3.2 million. He outperformed that contract big time. Next year, he's making $3.36. In the final year of his rookie deal, it's $5.2 million. That is dirt cheap for what he's going to be giving you in all of those years. You need more guys like that because this team's expensive now. That's a really important thing. So, not trading that pick away, drafting somebody, I think does give you some of that room. It does give you some of that room. And then it also leads into something that's going to be coming up in the future too. And we'll get into that in the third segment, but I did say I'd promise here we'd look. I forgot what I was going to say. I just completely spaced, and I wish I was doing a live show. You're catching me in the moment, and I'm trying to say, like, what did I say I was going to talk about in this segment? Oh, the technicality where they would trade the pick. This doesn't count because I could see it in a trade back scenario. Like when they traded back from 10 to 17 and drafted Trey Murphy. They're still drafting a guy in the first round. But they're not drafting it, but they technically traded the pick. So I should have titled this, this is why, 3 reasons why the Pelicans aren't going to, or what 3 reasons why the Pelicans will select someone in the first round of the NBA draft. That's really what I should have titled the show. Doesn't roll off the tongue as well. So I could see this pick traded if they're trading back, but then they're still selecting someone. So they're still using like a first round pick. It's a technicality, right? You agree with that. Good. The other reasons though, the Portland and Dallas issues there, having a better pick. You know, in this one, thinking about the luxury tax and trying to avoid it this year, while also kind of planning for future salary cap, is, I also think, a very big, important reason why they're going to end up making a pick here. I do also think 14 is a sweet spot in this draft where you look at some guys there and you're going to get some really good value. And I like that for the Pelicans, and they love value too. So I do think you can get a very solid player at 14 that they would be very happy with. They tend to fall in love with someone. They fell in love with Trey Murphy. They fell in love with Dyson Daniels. they're probably going to fall in love with someone in this draft too, and they probably feel they can get him at 14 or down later because they've been good about this. So they're going to kind of target that guy and make sure they get their player. They also fell in love with Kyra Lewis Jr. too. So they tend to do this. So it's going to be a shorter show today. Another reason why I don't think they trade away the 14th overall pick. Let's look at that. And this ties into future drafts too. And this is where I think things are going to be a little bit interesting. Let's look at that and what I mean by that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, completely free. There's no Locked On Pelicans Plus or anything like that. You don't pay money to be able to listen to these shows. They're free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. No one else comes to you like this. It's the most listened to and top rated Pelicans podcast by far. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend about the show. Teams should be fun next year. They were first in the West when healthy. And trust me, we'll look at how to keep Zion healthy, how to keep Brandon Ingram healthy too. So tell a friend about the show. Get them clued in. You don't want them coming up with dumb fake trades and bothering you through text messages and group chats with them. Let them know the team's probably not going to trade the pick and get them listening. And if you want to support the channel yourself, become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday. Go listen to that episode where I dropped the jersey info in there for you if you're sartorially inclined. And we'll have a great show tomorrow. We'll have more next week. We're going to start looking at draft prospects. We're going to do a community mock draft as well. That was a lot of fun last year. I'm looking forward to doing that again. I'll put out feelers for people who want to participate. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Listen Monday through Friday and comment down below on YouTube. Do you think the Pelicans will trade the pick or not? Do you want them to trade the pick or not? Given everything that I'm telling you today. So the third reason, after Dallas and Portland have better picks, there's luxury tax concerns. Third reason why I don't think they're going to trade this pick, and it actually ties into the last segment here. David Griffin has talked a lot about sustainability and building a team in a small market, and you kind of have different rules, different things you got to pay attention to with that. And how do you kind of balance the now versus the future with some of the disadvantages that you have? So you need a way to make it sustainable. How do you do that? Draft picks coming in and becoming pretty good is a great way. Build through the draft. It's kind of the idea of the Oklahoma City Thunder model, right? The old one. And they've done a good job of that. Zion is Zion. Herb Jones looks great. Trey Murphy looks great. Najee Marshall was a good undrafted guy for him too. Even Kenrich Williams was one too, but that was pre David Griffin, or was he Dell Demps, or was he David Griffin's first year? It might have been David Griffin's first year. So they've done a good job of kind of building, Jose Alvarado, of course. They've done a good job of this. And I think they want to keep that going. Eventually, some of these guys are going to need to leave the team. Whether it's Brandon Ingram, whether it's CJ McCollum, maybe Zion, and you need guys to step up and replace him. Trey Murphy, to me, looks like a dude that can do that. So when guys get too expensive, you can't afford them anymore, you got their young replacement, cheaper replacement ready to go. It's a great situation to be in. You do that by drafting guys. You do it by drafting guys, kind of as simple as that. We'll see what Dyson Daniels turns into, but I'm very high on him too. So they're starting to kind of build a pipeline of young talent and planning for the future. And here's the other thing. If they do want to make a bigger trade in the future, they have Bucks picks, they have Lakers picks, they have their own picks. They still are in position to do that. You also usually need to include an interesting young player or two in those type of deals. Guess who can do that? The Pelicans can. You can put Trey in a deal. You could put Dyson Daniels in a deal. You could put Herb Jones in a deal. You could put Jose Alvarado in a deal. All of those guys could be, and teams would be happy to get them. If you draft someone at 14 and develop them over a year or two and go, oh, hey, we got an opportunity to go get player X, Jaylen Brown, Karl-Anthony Towns, Bradley Beal. Let's go and do that now. Oh, hey, they want to, even though a team has the 14th pick, because we're including this guy we drafted 14th overall a couple years ago, and he was looking pretty good, so now we can get that other superstar player we need. That's important. And when you look at some of the future drafts, this upcoming draft this year doesn't look particularly great. Not this one, the one next year. Doesn't look as good as this one. So draft a guy now in a more talent-rich draft and then trade future picks in drafts that might not be as good. And that is maximizing the assets that you have, planning for the future while balancing the now. And this team, I think, does a pretty good job of it. The knock on the team right now is not their drafting, is not the players or the roster, it's health and getting those guys on the court. That's the number one problem. When I had Howard Beck on, and that was an awesome show. If you're an everydayer, thank you for listening to that. If you want to become an everydayer, go listen to that show with Howard Beck. You know, he said, this team's good. They were first in the West. The main issue was health. Simple. You know, it kept coming up as a theme. If Zion's healthy. And he's like, everything we're saying here might not matter because Zion could be healthy and they're really good. Correct. They're doing a good job, I think, of running this team. They just have some bad luck. I maybe need to evaluate that from top to bottom with the injuries. So they're doing a good job of building the pipeline of talent. They're set up for the future to handle losses from guys that they lose in free agency or trades and different things like that. They're probably set up better than a lot of other franchises are, more so than any other small market is. And I like that what they're doing here. So continue that trend. Continue that trend of building sustainably. It's not the sexiest thing to do. It doesn't yield the immediate results that maybe you want. But for this team and their limitations, I do think it's the right move. So keep doing it. Now, they're almost forced to because of the luxury tax concerns, because Portland has the 3rd pick, Dallas has the 10th, and they're looking to trade it for probably similar targets to the Pels. So kind of keep your path. Don't trust the process, because I don't want to say that, but they have a plan here, and they're executing it, I think, fairly well. And so those are the 3 reasons why I think they're not going to end up trading the 14th overall pick. If you're watching on YouTube, my hair is driving me insane as that little piece there won't stay down. And that's why I'm touching it constantly, and it's distracting me. And that's why we're going to end the show there. So let me know down below. Do you think they trade the pick? Is there an ideal trade out there for you? And maybe we'll evaluate some of the trades next week here on Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. I'll be back with you all tomorrow.